besties, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elizabeth. So on today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with us how I went about the cutting of this beautiful dress inspired by the KK brand. So in this tutorial, it will only be the cutting, and in my next one, I'll be sharing how I went about the sewing part so that the video does not get too long. Without wasting your time, let's get to it. Actually supposed to start this video with my basic bodies already drafted, but for the sake of the beginners amongst us, I'm going to be going over it again. So there's something I like to do. I like to come down by 1 inch from the top of my paper for my starting line. So that's the 1 inch you see me marking here, and I'm just going to connect that into a straight line. Then after that, I'll proceed to take my vertical measurement, and they're going to be starting from this starting line that I just marked. Okay, so the first measurement I'll be taking is my shoulder to my bust point. So the shoulder to bust point that I'm working with in this video is 9.5 inches. So I'm going to be placing my tape at the starting line, and I will mark the 9.5 inches like so. Please use your own measurement. Okay, this is just a guide. Use your measurements, please, so that you do not run into issues later. So after marking out my bust point, I'm going to be connecting that into a straight line, and then I'll go ahead and label my line. So after doing that, the next thing I will be doing now is to take my shoulder to my under bust measurement. So still placing my tape at the starting line, I'm going to come down to my shoulder to my bust to under bust measurement, which for me here is 12.5 inches. Again, use your measurement. So I mark that again just so I can have a straight line. Then I'll go ahead and use my ruler to connect that into a straight line, and then I'll label that as well, the under bust. UB means under bust here, and BP means bust point, for those of you that don't know before. So after that, the next measurement you need to take is the shoulder to your half length, or shoulder to waist length as some of you may call it. So still placing the tape at the starting line, I'm going to be marking 16 inches, which is the half length that I'm making use in this video. So I'm going to connect that with my straight ruler as well, and then I will label my waistline with WL. WL means waistline. So after that, the next thing I'll be doing now is to divide my shoulder into two. I'll come to the shoulder line, which is the starting line here, and I'm going to be placing half of my shoulder measurement. So the shoulder measurement I'm using here is 15 inches, and half of that gives 7.5. So I'm marking that 7.5 on the shoulder line, which is also the starting line, like so. And then on that point, I'll be coming down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. You know, our shoulder is not straight, it's kind of slanted. So I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch for that, and then I will take my basic neck width measurement of 3.5. It might not be basic, depends on how big you are, but 3.5 is just okay. I think it works well for most sizes. So from that shoulder slope, I'm going to be connecting it back to that 3.5 inches for my neck width that I took on the shoulder line. And then to avoid confusion, I'll just go ahead and mark my neck depth of 3 inches, though this neck depth is not actually needed in this tutorial, but I'm just going to draw it so that I do not get you guys confused on what I'm doing here. So I'll just take that measurement and mark it. Then after doing that, I'm going to be marking my chest line. So I'm going to get my chest line, and how do you get your chest line? You divide your round bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 inches to it. So whatever your bust circumference is, divide that by 6 and add 1.5 inches. So for me, I'm working with a bust of 33. By the time I was done with the calculation, I had roughly 7 inches. So I'm just going to be coming down by that 7 inches from my shoulder slope. Please take note. I'm coming down by that number I got from my shoulder slope. And then I'm going to rule that into a straight line as well, and then I will label my line, the chest line, which I use CL to denote here. So after doing that, I'm going to be taking my shoulder measurement, half of my shoulder measurements on the chest line as well, just so I have that line that will make us draw our armhole curve. So I'm coming in by half of my shoulder measurements on my chest line, and then I'll connect from that point back to the shoulder slope like you can see on the screen. Now the next thing I'll do is to get the armhole curve. And how do you do that? You see this line that I drew here? I'm going to be dividing it into two. I'm going to get the midpoint, so you will have the same thing on your own pattern. So divide that part by 2 to get the midpoint. So you can just use your tape to divide it like you can see I'm doing correctly. Just fold your tape over like so and get the midpoint. So on that midpoint, you will come in by half of an inch. From that point, come in by half of an inch, just like I'm doing currently. So come in by half of an inch. And after that, I'm going to go to my chest line, and then I'm going to put my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line, just so I can draw out my armhole curve. So the bust measurement I'm working with in this video is 33 inches, like I said before. And I'm just going to use my tape measure to divide that into 4. You can also use this method. I think it's very fast and you don't have to be racking your brain to divide one number. So after dividing my 33 by 4, I got 8.25. So I'm going to place that 8.25 on my chest line like so, and then I will mark out my measurement. Now the next thing I'll do is to connect all the 3 points together: the shoulder slope, that's midpoint, and also my point on the chest line. So I'm first of all going in with my straight ruler to connect from the shoulder slope to the midpoint, and then I will use my curved ruler to connect from the point on my chest line back to that midpoint, just like you can see. Then you have your armhole curve already. So moving on, the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to get half of my nipple to nipple measurements, just so that we can draw out our cup. It's just a guide. So the nipple to nipple measurement that I'm working with in this video is 7 inches. So half of that is 3.5 inches. So I'm going to be marking 3.5 inches on my under bust line. I'll also mark the same 3.5 inches on the waistline and also on the bust point line, just like you can see in the video. And then I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect all the points together like so. So now the next thing to do is to determine how exposed you want the upper parts to be, how exposed you want your boobs to be. Do you want it covered? Do you want it moderate? Or you want to, expose some skin in that part? So if you want it just moderate, you can go off by 1.5 inches or 2.5 inches. But if you want to show little skin, you can just maintain your chest line. But for me here, I'm going to be using 1.5 inches. So from my chest line, I'll be coming up by 1.5 inches, and then I'll connect that into a straight line. Then I'll go ahead and extend my nipple to nipple point to that new mark I made. So I forgot to mention that this bodice is a dartless bodice, meaning it will not have any darts. I'm not going to use darts in this pattern. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to get my curve, to draw my cup. And to do that, there is this little space that separates two cup when you are sewing corset. So for that little space on my chest line, I'm going to be coming in by half of an inch, which is going to be the bust bridge, the separation between the two cups. So after making that mark on my chest line, I'm also going to mark half of an inch on my bust point as well. And after making that mark, I'll connect with my straight ruler. I'll connect the 2 points together with my straight ruler like so. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to draw the first parts of the cup. So and to do that, I'm going to be placing my curved rule on the under bust point, and then I'll draw a curve down to the bust point, just like you can see on the screen. So just slightly draw it, don't make it too deep, okay? Just draw it a little. So after that, the next thing I'll do is to get the other cup, the other part of the cup. And to do that, I'm going to be taking the measurements I have from my bust point to my under bust. So go ahead and measure what you have between your bust point and your under bust. For me, I have 3 inches. Yours could be more than that. So I have 3 inches here, and I'm just going to add half of an inch to it. So whatever your measurement gives you, add half inch to it, and then place that on the nipple to nipple line that we drew earlier, and then mark the results that you get. So I'm marking 3.5 inches like so, and then I'll use my curved ruler to connect with the curve back to the under bust point and then back to the chest line like so. So we are basically done with the drafting of the cup. So after that, I'll just go ahead and give it a small sweetheart neckline. Just place your curve like so and give it a small sweetheart neckline. Then next thing I'll do is to go ahead and label my cup like so. So go ahead and label your pattern. So the style we are recreating has this queen hand neckline, and to draw that, I'm going to come over to my new chest line. I'm going to put my shoulder measurement divided by 2 minus 2 inches. Divide your shoulder into 2 equal halves. Whatever you have, subtract 2 inches from it. So the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 15 inches. That divided by 2 gives 7.5. And by the time I subtract 2 inches from that 7.5, I'm going to be getting 5.5. So I'm placing that 5.5 on my new chest line like so. And then I'll use my ruler to connect from that point to the top of my neckline, as you can see. So we're basically done with the drafting of the queen hand neckline. Then there's something I like to do on my anytime I'm drafting a queen hand neckline, anything that requires queen hand neckline, there's something I like to do. I like to come up from my chest line by half of an inch to avoid gaping, okay? To avoid gaping, there is this fold you get. If you don't do this, you kind of get fold, except you want to hold more than the allowance that you give. So to avoid that, I'm just going to be coming up by half of an inch on that point like so, and then I'll connect it back to my armhole. So by the time I close up, pretending like I've sewn the dress already, there will not be anything like gaping on my neckline. Okay, so moving on. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to put my round body measurement. So on my chest line, I'm going to be putting my bust circumference divided by 4. I already marked that before. On my waistline, I'll be putting my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark that as well on my waistline. So you can use your tape measure to divide that if you don't want to stress yourself. Just go ahead and use your tape measure to measure that, and whatever you get, put it on your waistline like so. Please make sure you are using your measurement for everything. Just follow this procedure and use your measurement, please. You can see that I'm emphasizing on use your measurement, so that you do not run into issues later. So after that, I'll just connect all the points together like so. We are almost done with the drafting of these basic bodies. So then the next thing I'll do is to add my stitching allowance. So I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches for stitching allowance. So whatever stitching allowance you're comfortable using, just go ahead and add it. Then I'll go ahead and label my pattern seam allowance 1.5 inches, just so I can remember later. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to get that V shape in front. So to get that V shape, I'm going to be coming down by 5.5 inches to 6 inches from my waistline. So from your waistline, come down by 5.5 inches or 6 inches. The two measurements works fine. So I'm just going to be making a mark there. I think I use 6 inches here. So I mark that. And then on the side seam, on the waistline still, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch on that point. I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. So I'm just going to make a mark there at 1 inch. I also make a mark at 1 inch on the seam allowance as well. Then I'll connect to the two points together like so. After which I'm going to be connecting my V from that point to that 6 inches we came down by from my waistline. So I'm going to be connecting the point like so to give us that V effect on the front of the dress we are recreating. Next thing I'll do is to go ahead and add my other allowances. So on the waistline, on the V shape that I just drew, I'm going to be adding ½ inch of allowance. I'm going to add it all the way to where I started connecting that from. I'm also going to add ½ inch of allowance to the bottom of my seam allowance like so, so I don't get to add another allowance when I'm cutting on my fabric. So I'm already including all the allowances now on my pattern. So after adding all the allowances, I'm just going to connect the points together. Then coming to the top of my paper, that is the excess of that 1 inch I marked for my starting line, just so I will have space to add my shoulder allowance. So for my shoulder line, I'm going to be coming up by ½ inch. I'll add ½ inch of stitching allowance, and then I'm going to use my ruler to connect it together like so. Then I'll also add ½ inch on my shoulder line, on my armhole curve. Go ahead and add all your necessary allowances. Then after doing that, we are basically done with the drafting of the front pattern. I will go ahead and cut out my pattern. Please pay attention to the parts that I'm cutting, because I'm going to be using this front pattern to trace out the back pattern, just so it saves me the stress of redrafting again. So now for the back pattern, I've gone ahead to place another paper on my table like so. And the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to mark out my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. So I'm going to mark that all the way to the end of my paper like so. And after doing that, I'll connect all the points together with my straight ruler. So after that, I'll bring in my front pattern, and I'm going to be placing that on the zipper allowance that I marked. I'm going to be placing it like so, and then I'm going to be tracing out what I have on the front pattern on the new pattern paper. So go ahead and trace out your front pattern on your new pattern paper like so. And after doing that, I'll proceed to make the lines more visible. I'm going to remark all the lines and make the alterations for the back. I'm going to be extending the waistline on the back pattern like so. And after extending that, I will come to this mark I made there. That's actually the starting line that I trace out from the front pattern. So I'm going to be marking my neck depth for my back pattern from that line. So the neck depth I'm using is 1.5 inches. So from that line, I'm coming down by 1.5 inches, and I will use my curved ruler to connect it back to the neck depth, to neck width, After that, I'll proceed to mark my allowance, ½ inch of allowance on my neckline like so. I'll mark that round, and then I'm going to connect with my free hand. So the next thing we want to do now is to get rid of zipper bulge, and to do that, I'll come to my waistline like so. From my actual waistline, not the zipper allowance now, from the actual waistline, I will go in by 1 inch, and then on the other line, I'm going to be returning that 1 inch I came in by, and then I'll connect that back to my chest line like so. This is just to avoid zipper bulge. So from that point, I'll be connecting it back to the neckline and also back to the bottom of my pattern, just like you can see on the screen. So after doing that, I'm now going to be marking my zipper allowance proper now. So from that new mark that we just made, the new line, I'll be coming out by 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. So I'm going to be marking the zipper allowance all the way to the top of my paper, and after I'm done with that, I'm going to be using my ruler to connect the points together. We know that the human body, the back is not straight, so in order to follow the curve of the back, that is why we are doing this alteration to avoid zipper bulge. So everything is just going to follow the shape of the back. Okay, so after doing that, I'm just going to label this the zipper allowance. I hope I'm not getting you guys confused. So I'm going to label that the zipper allowance, and I will shade off the parts that we are going to cut out. Just follow exactly what I'm doing in the video. So with this now, your pattern is just going to take the shape of your back. Your dress will not bulge at the back, okay? So after this now, I'm going in with my scissors, and then I'm going to cut out my pattern. Just pay close attention to the parts that I'm cutting out, just so you do not make mistake, okay?
Our first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
So after cutting it, this is what the back looks like, and this is the front. So I'm just going to set the back aside now, and then we'll finish working on the front pattern, okay? So now I'll go ahead and cut out the rest of my front pattern like so. Please just watch closely at the parts that I'm cutting out, so that you don't make mistake while cutting your own pattern.
Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. Damn, what a hell of...
So after cutting, this is what it looks like. These are the pieces you should have when you're done cutting your pattern, okay? So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to work on the cup area. To work on the cup, I'm just going to be taping it down on my table like so that it does not move around while I'm working on it. So after that, I'll just go ahead and draw out slash lines. Just draw out like 4 of it. You can decide to draw 4, 3, or more than that, depending on how full you want your cup to be, okay? For me, I just draw out just 4 lines, okay? And then I label them 1, 2 to 4, okay? Then I'll go ahead with my scissors now and cut out the pieces like so.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too.
So after cutting it out, this is what I have. I'm just going to set this aside now and introduce another piece of paper, just so I can spread my pattern on the new paper. So I'm just going to be arranging that. I first of all drew a line which is going to serve as guide for me, so that my pattern aligns well. One is no longer than the other. So after that, I'm going to be taping down my pieces one after the other, and then I'm spreading with about 1 inch, because I do not want this cup to be too full. If you want yours to be full, you can spread with about 1.5 or 2 inches, but I would advise 1 to 1.5 inches, because the style we are trying to recreate the cup is not very full. So 1 to 1.5 it's okay. So I'm going to repeat the same process. After pinning down the second one, I'll also mark 1.1 inch. Then I'll place the third paper on it, and then I will mark another 1 inch from that paper and place the fourth one on it, just like so. So after doing that, I'm just going to trace out what I have on the new pattern paper like so. I'm going to trace out from the top round to the bottom. So after tracing it out, I'll be removing my paper, the one I placed on it. I'm going to be removing it, and then I'll redraw the line and add my stitching allowance of ½ inch all around my new pattern. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and then I'll label my pattern, the cup. I will label the part that is going towards the center front and the part that is going towards the side front. I'll also label the one going towards the upper part and the down part. Then I'll go ahead and cut out like so. And after cutting it out, this is what all the pieces looks like. This is what the front part looks like. So I'm going to be gathering that cup later to fit into my curve on the bodies. So if you gain value from this video, please do not forget to give this video a like, comment on this video, let me know what you think about the tutorial. Also share this video with your soulmates, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So in my next tutorial, I'm going to be sharing how I put all these pieces together to make a beautiful piece that you are seeing right now. So till then, thank you so much for watching. See you in my next one. Bye.